Dr. Z, on today's show, we're doing a show about the slippery slope of socialism and communism.
Slippery slope of socialism.
We're talking about socialism versus capitalism. And to have this discussion, we decided to invite a guest who actually grew up under communist rule.
Bulgaria.
Bulgaria.
Okay, I want to ask you a question.
Ceitci is her name. Ceitci is her
So
name.
if it's a slippery slope of socialism, what do you slide into?
Communism.
Oh, my gosh.
Her name is Ceitci. The last name is Demirkova. The whole thing, it's hard to pronounce here, but it's Ceitci. It's C-E-I-T-C-I.
She's a lovely person, has a great testimony, great story.
K-O-V-A. Great lady, unbelievable. And we're joined by Dr. Cordy Williams. This guy was served in the Marines, and now he's out there fighting for American freedom. He's out there running into these these Democrat states. He's standing up against these governors, and he's telling them the truth. He's doing interviews in the media. See, this guy is outspoken about protecting our First Amendment rights to peaceably gather. I could not be more fired up for today's show. It's good stuff.
Tell the reason why you really are in love with this Marine.
I love the fact that I was watching a streaming Facebook Live video, and I see this guy, this Marine, get up into the crowd. He takes a megaphone and he starts talking out loud.
He's the megaphone Marine
to the law enforcement community in California that was forced to impose these lockdowns. These people they were
horrible.
These people who are being forced, their job now, because they work for Governor Newsom, is to stand there and tell people not to go outside, not to go to church, not to go to school. And he's out there shouting it down. It's unbelievable. And I could not be more fired up about anything than today's show, because these people love America. They love freedom.
America!
And Ceitci's actually lived under communist rule, so she knows what it's
great
like.
Testimony. Great. You can't miss today's show.
Zay, without any further ado, let's start this show.
Let's get her going.
Here we go. All right, we're gonna get it going.
Let's get it on.
Well, let's do it.
Let's go.
At any moment, we could get it going.
Green light.
I'm not ready for it. Give me just a second. I want to get ready. I don't want to.
I'm digging this music. I'm kind of liking this music.
It's kind of.
I don't know what it is. But it's kind of got me.
James, is this you in the background?
Oh, just keep it going.
Oh yeah. Just rave.
Okay, no, we gotta get the show started.
Okay, I want some glow sticks, but first.
Get ready to enter the Drive Time Show.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top. Teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colin Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of five, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the CNC up on your radio. And now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and
Yes, and yes. Dr. Z, it is ecstasy when you are next to me. How are you, sir?
I'm fired up.
Sir, I got to ask you a couple tough questions to start today's show.
Okay.
And then we will begin interviewing today's guest inside the studio here. Do you like having less freedoms? In the recent months, you've some businesses have been deemed to be essential.
Is this a trick question?
I'm just asking.
Okay.
Do you like less? Does the idea of choice overwhelm you? Do you prefer less freedom, sir?
I do not prefer less freedom. I prefer more freedom.
Do you prefer not being able to go to church if you want to?
I don't prefer that. I prefer having the ability to go to church.
Do you prefer to give up all of your freedoms in exchange for free stuff?
No.
Well, then you're probably not a communist.
How did you know?
Well, I'm just...
Am I that transparent?
I have a pop,
Checks out.
a pop
Oh, my
quiz.
gosh.
Now, on today's show, we have an incredible guest, and she actually lived under communist rule for, I believe, 16 years. Ceitci, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Well,
Doing wonderful.
We're going to start off with the controversial questions. People want to know, how do we spell and say your name correctly? Because if we get it wrong, the whole rest of the show goes bad.
It's blown.
Educate us.
So my name is Ceitci. It's kind of like say, T, and C. Ceitci.
Ceitci.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay. And you, my understanding is that you grew up in Bulgaria. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tell us your story. I mean, age 16, were you still growing up under communist rule, or what was happening in your life at the age of 16?
So communism fell when I was 16, so that was 1989. And until that time, I was born and raised in a communist dictatorship style in the nation of Bulgaria. So life in communism, very different than life in America. For most Americans who have never even lived outside of here, they can't even comprehend how restrictive and depressing and oppressive the environment is. So, for example, every day when we would go to school, there would be someone inspecting you if your clothes are ironed, if your shoes are all perfectly and clean, and if your nails are cut, and if you have your red tie or blue tie, which represented that we belong to the Communist Party. If any of those things were not perfectly and immaculately put on you, you had to go back home and bring your parents, and then they had to sign a release form that the next time you're going to be in perfect behavior and you're going to look perfectly. That's just one little thing about just going to school.
Can we go to the communist store for a minute? Let's say, because we know school, there's somebody there auditing you, telling you if you're complying or not. Let's go to the grocery store, if you can remember. What's it like going to a grocery store under communist rule?
So going to the grocery store, everything is behind a person who is selling items. You only have one choice of everything, one type of sugar, one type of bread, one type of milk. You don't ever have to make decisions or choices. Somebody's always made them for you. You just go, point the finger what you want, they give it to you, and then you leave the store. Fortunately, because there was so much shortage on items, we had to wait in long lines to get bread, to get milk, to get sugar. And most people prefer to actually grow their own vegetables and animals so that they don't have to go to the store and you can have better access. So that's just one thing about communism that most people don't understand is you're deprived of all of your rights. You don't have the ability to think for yourself. You don't have the ability to choose for yourself. And you also don't have any freedom as to where you would really live, go to school, what you're going to be doing with the rest of your life. Somebody's already predetermined that you're going to have maybe two choices in life and you're going to choose one or the other.
Had you got to the age where you were given your two choices, or is that after 16?
So I was already given two choices as far as school was concerned, but I was left-handed, so I have to insert that part. You couldn't be left-handed under communism. You have to learn how to do everything with the right hand. So immediately you have all of these things imposed on you so you can relearn everything. Well, at age 13 or 14, I believe, you have to choose a different type of school. You couldn't no longer just go to the elementary school. You have to choose a school that you're going to be doing something for the rest of your life. So either it could be arts or engineering or learning languages. So I actually got accepted to be in a German high school at that time. And I don't even know how I got in it because only supposedly the smart kids were supposed to be a part of that school, and I ended up getting in it. And the teachers came to my house to tell my parents that I was so stupid that I should release my spot in the school so that somebody who is smarter than me and who is not left-handed could attend the school. Well,
Wow.
That's life under communism. Somebody is always coming and telling you what to do. The teachers would also come and inspect your house if it was clean. And if your books were not in order the way they perceive that they should be, you always get a black dot behind your name. And the threat was one day if you have a certain amount of black dots, you won't be able to go to college. Now, for those who are listening, college under communism was free. But why was education also at the highest, uneducated people at the highest level at the time? Because when everybody is paid the same and you only have one opportunity, you don't have to spend the rest of your life studying when you're going to get paid almost the same amount as somebody who is sweeping the street.
Now, Z, I want to make sure people are keeping points, keeping score. Devin, are you keeping score over there?
I'm doing my best.
Please keep score. I want to
Okay.
make sure, okay?
I was lost at iron my pants.
I wanna make sure.
I'm out. I couldn't make
so
a good
right now,
communist.
please take. Now, I'm serious. I want you to keep track of this, Devin. Don't play the games with me. Here we go.
Yeah,
So
no games.
If you are totally into communism, okay,
Yeah.
you get free college. That's one
That's
point.
one- that's it.
One
That's
point.
there we go.
That's one.
Free.
Now, on the side of things you have to give up, you have to have an inspector who comes to your class to make sure you're doing things right.
You're dressed correctly.
That's a negative point.
Yeah.
You got to make sure you're dressed correctly. That's a negative point. You and I would both fail that miserably today.
Miserably.
Okay. Then that's 2 negative points. And then you get one choice for the food. That would never work for my wife or many women. You get one choice.
Right.
That's not for the food. That's not a good move.
But it's free. You just
it's
tell
free
them what you
college.
want.
You get free college.
Yeah.
And then the left hand, you can't be left-handed, which so right now, I mean, it sounds. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence, but it sounds like communism's not a good thing.
Wow, you got all that from that?
Well, that's where I'm going now.
But free college.
So let me bring
dude.
So between the age of 16 and 18, when you say communism fell, how did it fall? And then tell us about the missionaries that came and visited you. How did it fall? And tell us about the missionaries.
You know, I have a really an amazing story about that part. So, first of all, President Ronald Reagan came to Bulgaria 3 years prior to the fall of communism, and that's when he addressed the Berlin Wall speech and addressed Mikhail Gorbachev and said, tear down the wall. So we were all obviously under communism with Eastern Europe and Russia. And right after that, just a small snippet of what he was speaking on TV actually trickled onto our news station. And under communism, one thing people need to understand, you don't have access to information outside of what the government offers you, and that comes from Russia and from the Bulgarian government. And it's only about 1 to 2 hours tops per day that you would actually get entire TV programs, not even just newscasts. So somehow we heard just a few sentences of Ronald Reagan's speech, and I realized at age 12, wow, somebody shattered our false euphoria of socialism and communism, because we thought that that's the highest level of achievement of life that you could live in, where everybody is equal, you have everything shared, and you have absolutely no freedom to express opinion or celebrate Christmas or Easter. And we didn't know any better. We were all poor at the same time. So when I heard him speak, I thought, wow, they're telling us that America is about to bombard us and they're going to kill us and they hate us and everything else is negative about America. But somehow this man is speaking with conviction, and it seems like he cares for us more than the Communist Party does. And as a little girl, I just felt like somebody is lying to us, but at the same time, you can't ask any questions because you were told that you could end up in a concentration camp, that your parents could be arrested, that you're always having with the fear of what if this happens. And so now, 3 years later, all of a sudden, the Berlin Wall falls down, and it trickles all the way with the ending of the Cold War into Poland and Hungary and Romania
Quick
and
time
Bulgaria.
out, because I think somebody out there is saying, I don't know what we're talking about. I want to make sure we get this. Can you please explain, because some of our listeners, we have some great listeners. But some people aren't aware. I just talked to a young man this week who's not much younger than me, who has no clue about what the Cold War was. And I don't blame him. I just blame the school system. Could you explain briefly what the Cold War was and then what the Berlin Wall was, the significance of that, just so that we don't lose any listeners?
Well, I believe the Cold War was a part of America and Russia fighting together for the freedom, according to each of their understanding of freedom. So Russia wanted to take over, and America wants to liberate us from the communist dictatorship.
Got it.
And then the Berlin Wall, it was basically a separation between Western Germany and Eastern Germany. And they literally went through neighborhoods and separated them in one instant. And so people who were living on the other side of the wall couldn't even go visit their family who was on the side of the western side of the wall. So when we're talking about the Berlin Wall, that was significant because it represented the distinction between the Western Europe countries and the Eastern European countries. So for anybody who is still confused, Western Europe was never socialist. They've always been capitalist nations. To this day, they may implement certain levels of socialist healthcare and helping their society, but they've never been socialist communist nations. Eastern Europe, starting from Germany, Eastern Germany, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, former Yugoslavia, Albania, Romania, Bulgaria, going into Russia, the entire continent, all of those countries, we were all under the communist empire and structure.
Oh, got it. So the Berlin Wall fell. For people out there that don't know, what caused it to fall?
So people started uprising, and once the president gave the speech, President Ronald Reagan gave the speech, people started uprising and saying, we're not going to tolerate this oppression anymore. So there were undercurrents that were going on underneath what we could see and understand at that time, and they overthrew the systems in these countries. And once it was overthrown in Germany, because we were watching the wall fall down, this was November 10, I believe, 1989, it literally was like a domino effect trickling across the entire Eastern continent, where people were uprising on the streets, going out and saying we no longer want communism. I mean, Romania immediately captured their president Ceausescu, and they ended up killing him, and then civil war broke out at that time in Romania, where in Bulgaria we didn't go into civil war, we just went into huge civil unrest. And for 3 years after communism fell, it was just chaos everywhere.
Chaos. And so at this point, did the missionaries come and visit you?
So it was right after that time, about 2 years into it, because we were still kind of closed nation. Until that time, people need to understand, we never saw foreigners coming into the country. I mean, you couldn't just see people from another nation. You couldn't just leave the country and go visit other countries unless it was a communist bloc nation. Then you can go for a little bit. So missionaries came in 1991, 92. That was during the time when we had absolutely nothing in the stores. I mean, lines for a loaf of bread, you would have to wait for an entire day, sometimes 12 hours just to get one loaf. We had a coupon system after that, where according to how many people are in the family, then that's how many things you get from the store, so that you have enough for everybody. Electricity was turned off, water was turned off, because those were supplies that were coming from Russia. So missionaries from Germany landed on our street by a miracle. They were giving out food, distribution of boxes with food. They had no idea where to go. They got lost. So I went out onto our balcony, which was kind of in the center of the city where we were living at that time, and I overheard them speaking in German. And because I was already studying in a German high school, I thought, wow, I can probably help them out. So I yelled something in German, and they came to my house. And they were like, oh, you speak German, so let us give you this food and tell you about Jesus. Well, until that time, we had never even heard the name of Jesus. We had never celebrated Christmas. And I invited them to the house. They had a huge box of food with chocolate, bananas, oranges, stuff that most people here take for granted, that we had never even seen until the fall of communism. And I got all excited. I'm like, I'm going to believe Jesus just for the food. So they invited me to go to a meeting that night. And I went to the meeting. They were doing drama on the street. A lot of people were just gathering everywhere because we needed food. And the first time in my life, I heard that there is a God, his name is Jesus, and that he can heal. Now, you can imagine, up until that time, I became a very depressed child. I mean, here I am all alone. The teachers think I'm stupid. Nobody believes I can do anything. And I thought I'm just going to commit suicide that week because I didn't feel like I could make it another day. And that's when Jesus came into my life. And by just going there and saying, if there is a God, I need him to heal me from this pain in my stomach that was constantly there for several years. And if you do, then I'm going to believe in you for the rest of my life. And the moment I thought that, the pain left. They gave an altar call, and I ran up there with 500 other people or more, gave my life to the Lord, and I was the first Christian in my family to become to believe in Jesus.
Wow. So you obviously were able to leave this country and make your way to America. There's so many miracles in a row here with your story. Can you share the story of how you were able to leave your home country and make your way into America?
Sure. So fast forwarding, I decided I'm going to be a preacher. I mean, I started reading the Bible from the book of Acts. I thought, well, everybody thinks I'm stupid, so the only thing I could possibly do with my life is travel and preach the gospel. And I thought the disciples did that. Signs, wonders, miracles followed them, so that's what I'm going to do. Well, a little problem. There were no Bible schools in the country since we were closed. And new set of missionaries came back to our hometown, and they were from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they told me about Victory Bible College.
Oh, wow.
I know, small world. And at that time, I didn't speak English because I had studied German for 5 years, and persecution broke out in the country, so they asked all of the missionaries to leave immediately the nation. So there I am, left alone to study English. They came back here. I got approved and sent a letter of approval that I can come to Victory to study. Now I had to go and get a visa from the Bulgarian consulate, for the American consulate in Bulgaria, so that I can attend the school. I get there, and this is really the big story here, because I'm waiting in line with hundreds of other people that want to leave the nation. And they were not giving visas to many people. Maybe 1 or 2 people per 100 people would get a visa. So a man in front of me goes inside, comes back out, and says they didn't give me a visa because they said I can't speak fluent English. And I asked him, how long have you been speaking English? He says 7 years. And I'm thinking, oh no, I've been speaking English for 2 weeks. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And the Lord spoke to me and he said, if you just go inside and witness about me, I speak all languages and I'm going to give you an understanding to speak English. So I go inside. The lady looks at the paperwork. She obviously sees Victory Bible Institute. First question out of her mouth is, why do you believe in God? And I thought, wow, this is a perfect timing to answer about Jesus. And I'm so confident as I'm speaking because I can see that God was speaking through me, and I was speaking in English without ever have studied all these words in English. So she says, you speak really well. How long have you been a translator? Well, since I was a German translator, I said 5 years. And she said, well, I can't give you a visa because you have no money to come to America. So they denied my visa on the first try, but they gave me 5-day grace period in case I could come back with more paperwork. And during that particular time is when the Lord did several miracles. The people who were already here gathered all the money that I needed. They sent the paperwork through another missionary couple that was coming back that Monday. This is just within 5 days.
Why did they do that?
They just really believed that God had a call on my life, and they wanted to help me fulfill my dreams. And
wonderful.
God had
Awesome.
already spoken to them to help me, so they were like, we're not going to give up halfway. And when the other couple came back, they brought the paperwork. We went in. I got the visa. But the miracle was that in between that time, the Lord had asked me to buy 2 suitcases, pack all my bags, get a ticket on a reservation that I am coming on the 5th of December, 94, to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I had to do it by faith. Had no idea if I'm really going to get the visa. And so when they showed up and everything worked out, I got the actual ticket, but I didn't have enough money for the ticket, so they paid the rest of the money. I got on the plane on December 5th, 94, and 2 days later they had new elections in Bulgaria, and they re-elected socialist government again, and they shut the country down for people to travel.
Wow.
So I came in just in nick of time, right before everything turned around, and so I started my life here, and now it's been 26 years. This December, it will be 26 years since I arrived here. But here is the miracle. I got here with $100 because that was what's left from the money that they had given me. Didn't have all of the money and the dream figured out of how I'm going to do everything. But I just knew that if I persevered with through all the storms of life, that I can help the kids in Bulgaria, I can help my family, I can be a spokesperson for people who are coming out of countries like Bulgaria and other people who don't have any understanding of what life is like in a nation such as former communist nation.
There's so much information we could unpack here, but I want to focus on 4 big ideas if we can. 4 big ideas.
4.
Not 5.
Not 5.
Not 17.
Not 3.
4.
4.
So big idea number 1.
Big.
I think we could all agree that living under communism is a bad thing.
It's a bad thing.
Do we all agree? I mean,
Absolutely.
Ceitci, if anybody out there is telling you, no, I'm in favor, but it sounds like a good idea. This
Yeah.
equal income.
Everybody
for
shares
everybody.
everything.
What would you say to somebody right now in America who's having that thought? It sounds like a good idea. Free college, free
yeah.
health care,
Free
what
everything.
What would you say to them?
First of all, there is no free. Everything is owned by somebody else, and in that case would be the government or the elite. and they will control your life. Because if everything was free and everybody was equal, then the government has to be on the same equal place as everybody else, and they are never going to do that. Also, people need to understand that socialism was founded by Karl Marx, and it morphed into communism by Lenin. And in their mindset, and if in their thesis even of what they have written about socialism, the goal of socialism is always full communism, meaning enlargement of government control over every person's life, and the ability for them to control your mindset and your will.
So, big idea number one. I think I think we're all on the same page here. We could go over 50 ideas. We have 4 big ideas.
Right.
One is socialism or communism is not a very good idea when compared to capitalism, right?
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give
that?
you. I can't. You got me.
No,
muted.
try again. So,
I was going to give you a mega point.
Okay,
you got the
nice.
first one right.
Mega point. Okay.
3 more. A lot
So
of
right
pressure.
now we go
A lot of
capitalism.
pressure.
If you're confused, you say, "What do I do now?" You say, "Capitalism is better than socialism." Someone
Right.
out there is very confused right now. They say, "What?
Well, yeah.
What again?"
Well, hey.
They're all coming at me. So there's so many options. It's coming at me fast. What do I do?
Fast and
Socialism
furious.
or capitalism? But it's capitalism is better. We're on the same page.
Right.
Okay. Big idea number 2 is socialism is the slippery slope that leads to capitalism. So
leads
this
to communism?
idea-
It leads
to
to
communism.
communism.
I'm sorry. So the socialism is the slippery slope that leads to communism. It starts off with this idea of, hey guys, do you want some free health care?
Yeah.
Hey guys, do you want some free college?
Yeah.
Hey guys, do you want equal? Do you want income guarantees for anybody out there that doesn't work?
Sure.
And pretty soon, at some point, more people are taking from the system than are paying into the system. And then, so I don't know if you know the history of how socialism began in your home country, but when did it just flip over into all-out communism?
1941.
1941.
Yes.
What happened?
So prior to that, we actually had a king. They had to kill the king and his entire family in order to take over and become a socialist nation. Because until that time, the king had the rulership. And because they killed only him and his family, somebody took his son to Spain and ended up raising his son there. So the Communist Party was always afraid that his son could come one day and rule Bulgaria because he had actual rights to the country. And he was forbidden at that time. I'm not 100% certain with how everything happened, but it was complete revolution in the nation where people, so like police, for example, kind of similar to what's happening here. The police was no longer just police. They were part of the KGB. They were supposed to spy on the people. They were supposed to arrest. They worked only for the government, not for the protection of the people, but against the actual people. And then in the meantime, the privatizations of property. Whatever was private to you was taken on by the government, and you no longer actually own the land. It was kind of like you were borrowing the land while you're living there, borrowing the house, and that all belongs to the government. Everybody's salary is immediately equalized. So it doesn't matter if you're working 100 hours or 2 hours, you're going to have small amount of salary for everybody so that it is a distribution. But it's not a distribution from people who are running the country. It's a distribution from the middle class to lower class.
So let's make sure we get this idea. So one, Z, we're saying capitalism is better than socialism. We got that.
We got that.
2 is the slippery slope. Socialism is the slippery slope
It's
that
the slippery
slope that
slippery
leads
slope
to communism.
Yes.
They don't just come out and say, we're going to take this into the communist Marxist direction. Now, big idea number 3. Ronald Reagan chiming in. Is it okay if I quote some Ronald Reagan here?
Oh, yeah,
I don't think you
absolutely.
can quote enough.
Ronald
R&R.
Reagan says, socialism only works in 2 places. Heaven, where they don't need it, and hell, where they already have it.
I love that quote.
Can I read
Yes.
that again? I want to read that again.
Yeah,
let
please
me
do.
just,
You know what? I'm going to give you a mega point.
Oh, see, I'm going to read this to you. You tell me what this means.
Okay.
Socialism only works in 2 places.
Places.
Heaven, where they don't need it. And hell, where they already have it. Sir, I don't get it. What's he saying? Help break it down. What does he mean?
Well, you don't need socialism. You don't need anything up in heaven because you have
oh.
everything.
Okay, I'll put that.
You
okay, I'm
have
writing that down
it
right now.
all. I mean,
Oh.
I haven't been there yet.
Yeah.
but I've read a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And in hell, I mean, hell's not a really fun place. And I would think, according to what we've been hearing today, Bulgaria was a little bit of hell at that time. I mean, now that you've tasted the United States of America and all the benefits that capitalism and our society, free societies give, I mean, you probably have to kind of compare them. This is more like heaven. That's a lot more like hell. Is that right?
I mean, for sure. When I first arrived here and I saw the Statue of Liberty, immediately the Statue of Liberty tells me we're in a land of the free and the dreams are possible. That anybody can come here with their free will and express who they are and fulfill their God-given potential. Where in a country like Bulgaria or any socialist nation, I am yet to see somebody who escaped communism and socialism beating down the door of another socialist nation saying, we love it so much, we want to go to another socialist country.
Oh, yeah.
Why is
Oh, it's
everybody
beautiful.
coming to America or going to Western Europe for work? Because even countries like Bulgaria, after 28, 29 years of being out of the communist dictatorship, we're still economically disabled. I mean, there is not a lot of money for the people that are the elderly. So we have a lot of injustices. Even if you just flew to Bulgaria right now, you're going to see the different classes of people, the people that are the poorest on the streets, the child trafficking, the abuse. All of that is consequences of a structure that is definitely there to oppose anything that God has given to us and to dismantle our freedom and abilities to think and be who we are.
Now, Z, point number 3 here, and Ceitci has so much great research on today's show notes, but socialism is the greatest lie. It really is, because under socialism, you say government is the answer.
Right.
Under socialism, there's no incentive to perform well. Faith and the government are incompatible. Can you talk about these briefly here? Government is the answer. Why is that not? Why is it not proven not to be true in these socialist communist countries?
Well, first of all, according to Marx and Lenin, you cannot believe in God while you're in that type of a lifestyle and structure, because the government is God. You have the self-elevation of the humanistic ideology that you are God and there is nobody else. Now, you're not God per se if there is a government, but the government becomes your God. So you have to worship the government. So we had the marches, we had the times when a dictator passed away, when they would turn the sirens off, and for 5 minutes you had to take a knee on the ground wherever you're at just to tell your appreciation of how grateful you are for that dictator. And so everything in that particular system is about the glorification of whoever the leader is and the government system. And anybody that opposed themselves and asked questions of what about God, what about Jesus, they were immediately eliminated. We didn't even hear these people at all. They were put in concentration camps. They were killed. Pastors underneath that dictatorship were immediately killed. That's why we had no idea that anybody even believed in God.
Z,
Wow.
is it okay if I get intense for a second here?
You get intense? I'd like to see
I want
that
to
for
be
one
intense
time.
like we're camping. You know what I mean? Intense.
Like clamping?
Oh, here we go.
Let's
so
clamp.
there's somebody out there who is saying right now that it is a good idea to become socialist. And Paul, I'm going to have you hop over there real quick and take the other mic. We're just switching stuff around. Devin's trying to run the video switcher. I'm not following any of the rules. It's getting crazy in here.
It's getting crazy.
But Paul, you're a CPA. You've grown your practice from nothing to something. I mean, you grew up poor. Your father was an alcoholic. You've shared this a lot. You had nothing,
I did.
but you built something.
I did.
But in a communist country, we'd all have, it's like mandated
Well, he would have to build
mediocrity.
anything in a communist country. It'd just be all,
everything for free,
Everything
yeah.
for
We
free.
mandated mediocrity. So I just want
Absolutely.
mandated mediocrity.
Think of all that hard work you would have saved. Paul, you could have been hitting the easy button.
I could have been sleeping
But
in
there's-
a bed
listen,
instead of my car. It would
Homies,
have been great.
homies, I mean this stuff. There's all sorts of surveys that are showing. I want to get your take on this. I want to get Z's take on this. I want to get Ceitci's take on this. There's all sorts of very disturbing research that shows right now that the average college student thinks that socialism is a good idea. Now, I think we've been nice enough. I think we've built some rapport with our listeners. I feel like it's now it's time to go on the attack. So I want to get your take, Paul. Why is it absolutely, completely just jackassery to believe that socialism is the solution?
Well, it's we live in the greatest country on the planet because
Amen.
we're allowed to compete. We're allowed to excel. We're allowed to work harder and do better and have more instead of just being average. And, eventually I've heard it put this way. Eventually, the people that pull the wagon are going to get tired of the people riding in the wagon, and nobody's going to pull the wagon, so there you go. And I don't understand it. It's very
It's
symptomatic.
perverse.
It is.
I don't get it.
Of the generation of everybody gets a trophy.
I don't get
You
it.
can't hit a kid in the face with a dodgeball
I don't get it.
anymore. It's crazy. But
I can't believe that our culture, people my age, would want to hide from a virus and stay home and get a government check. That makes no sense to me. I have people my age I know, and I'm going, how is it even possible? I can't even help me. See, I can't even grasp it. It's almost like somebody is coming. They fly down from a Star Trek movie, and they're speaking like Klingon or something. When they start talking about wanting to stay home to be safe, or people always telling me, stay home, be safe. Be
safe.
I can't even get it. I don't get it. You get it?
It's misinformation.
I don't get it.
It's not the truth. If you had the truth, they wouldn't say that. But they don't have the truth, and we know why they don't have the truth. And we don't have the truth because the majority of the media is not telling the truth. And even then, really, what is the truth? Do you listen to CDC? Do you listen to the WHO?
Well, the truth is this: is that Dr. Bartlett, who we've had on the show, has treated over 1,200 people now of COVID-19, and nobody's died.
Yeah, they're probably all young though.
No. All people, all different ages, comorbidities.
I know.
Look him up. Dr. Richard Bartlett, the former top medical advisor to Governor Perry of Texas for 7 consecutive years. But, Z, I see people saying we need to shut down Z's auto auction. We need to shut down Clay's haircut place because those are spreader events.
Oh, yeah.
And these people are advocating for me to shut down my company to be safe. Do you even understand the logic? I mean, come on. Oh.
No, I don't. And
I
it's
need some cowbell on the track.
It's just borderline evil.
It is evil.
The damage that we're doing to businesses and to individuals and to families and to just persons out there by not letting them work, by not letting them, be a capitalist. We're doing it.
And it's like, hey, let's just keep printing money.
Yeah.
Keep printing money.
Oh, yeah.
Clay,
my great-great-grandchildren can pay it back.
Yeah, it boils down to not having faith in each other, not having faith in God. So what they do is they want to be taken care of, and so they defer they need Big Brother. They need the government to say what is good, what is bad, because they've been placated their entire life by their parents.
So, Ceitci, let's just pretend for a second that we are in a terrible dystopia known as communist America. But this is how I would look at it. If I were a doctor, I'm not, but you are. But if I was a doctor, Z's a doctor, and Paul's a doctor, and all of us are making the same amount of money. Luckily, Z has a great work ethic. Paul, I know you do, but I know other people who do not have a good work ethic.
Right.
So I could see where doctors would say, I'm not going to treat you unless I get a little whatever it is.
Something chicken.
Something corrupt, something nefarious. I mean, I
loaf
can think
of
about
bread.
I could be thinking about food, drugs,
Yeah.
sex, weapons. I mean, I can think of all sorts of bribery. Was bribery common in the communist world that you grew up in? It was.
I would say socialism is the birthplace of bribery, jealousy, shame, and fear. All of those 4 things function simultaneously, because if you go to the hospital, a person who is getting paid just a little bit more than a person sweeping the street has absolutely no incentive to take care of your relative. And when you're in the hospital, I used to say hospitals in countries like Bulgaria were worse than prisons in America. They looked horrible. There were animals running through them. There were 10, 15, 20 people in one room, all sick with different diseases. Nobody cared if you're going to live or die. Most of my relatives have passed away because of bad health care, because once you turn 60 or 62 in those days, like, for example, my grandma, she was having a heart attack. We called the ambulance. The first thing that comes out of their mouth is, how old is she? 62. Oh, she's past the age of 60. Well, she's going to die. She's too old anyway. We're not coming. Yes, she died because that's what free healthcare system is.
Yeah.
They do not care or value the life of children or adults or anybody. So then you go to any kind of other business and you need anything done for you, you always felt like, I have to bribe this person in order to get anywhere in life. Or I'm always going to be afraid of what the system is doing because I have no idea what they could do to me if I spoke too much. So absolutely, in either of those places, and the lifestyle of communism and socialism is never going to allow a regular person who is used to American mindset of getting up and doing whatever they want to actually live or progress. I don't even see how most young people could live under communism or socialism with the lack of discipline that we have in this generation, or self-entitlement, because immediately it will be removed from you. And I have gotten text messages from kids telling me that communism and socialism are two different things, and I have no idea what I'm talking about, when they have never even read the manifesto on Marx or Lenin to understand. Or when people say that if Jesus was alive today, that he would be a socialist. To compare Jesus to an actual dictator, it's not only disgrace and unbiblical, but it shows me the lack of biblical understanding and the lack of socialism and what people actually understand socialism to be.
Well, let me clarify this real quick here. If somebody out there says if Jesus were alive today, he would be a socialist. I want to make sure we get this. Socialists don't allow religion. So
Absolutely.
Jesus would have to cancel himself right away. That doesn't even make sense.
Cancel culture.
And see, I try not to quote a whole lot of Karl Marx on this show, but are you okay if I quote some Karl Marx?
Sure. You probably will get a mega point.
Well, let me read it, and then you can kind of break down what this means. Okay, so here we go. This is Karl Marx coming in your ear, folks. Here he says, religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of a soulless condition. It is the opium of the people. Z, does it sound like Karl Marx would be down with Jesus?
No.
Interesting.
No.
Now, point 4. I have one final point, and then I want to direct our listeners where they can learn more about Ceitci and your book.
I want to get back. You asked a question.
Oh,
Paul got to answer it. I didn't. And that is...
I'm his new favorite. Sorry.
Obviously. I mean, you got a cool last name, Hood.
There you go.
It's just kind of cool. I mean... people say I'm in the hood, you know.
It's all good in the hood.
There's
it's
Paul
all
Hood
good in the hood.
Z. You got to understand something, Clay. Yep. A lot of the countries that had socialism, which morphed into communism, the people there thought it was a good idea at first. I mean, Cuba, they had the Batista government. They had they were capitalistic, but they were corrupt. Which there's a lot of corruption around the world,
right?
And the people were excited. And they were happy. They were marching the streets. They had their little berets on, and they were woo. Fidel's the man. Fidel
baby.
is the answer.
He's the answer.
He was the
answer.
Mr. Castro, President Castro. Anyway, and so they actually were like, oh yeah. And now fast forward, it's I don't know they'd go back and make the same decision. And so a lot of times just the concept and the theory of it. I mean, I know a friend of mine who's very educated. He's a very sharp attorney. And we were having a political discussion, which we don't often do because it gets into a, fist fight. Yeah. But I asked him a point blank. I said, so do you really think communism is a better system? Let's just get that out in the open right now.
Let him think about it. Let him think about it.
Do you think communism? And he looked at me and he goes, done correctly.
Done correctly.
Done correctly. Mm-hmm. Yes, it would be.
Done correctly.
Done correctly.
Hey, real quick, I'm gonna just make sure that Z, what people understand what Z said makes sense even in a small business. Okay, so when you have a small business, we have a call center. This just happened. This just happened. Okay, in the call center, one of the businesses I'm involved in, all the call reps, they don't make the same amount of money. They get paid per appointment they schedule for this particular business.
Shocking.
And do you know why we do that, Paul? Why we pay people per appointment they set, not per hour?
Encourage them to do more. Encourage them to more succeed.
Unbelievable. So anytime I get hired to work in any call center, my very first move is I say, let's put in merit-based pay.
Merit-based.
Problems are solved almost immediately.
Almost.
Because people are chasing a reward. Now, point number 4.
Oh, here we go.
Ceitci, you love America.
Absolutely.
And I would like for you to be able to share why you love America, because you came here from another country.
Great story.
And unlike, this is what I see, this makes me crazy. People who come here from another country, they have to flee their country. Because of the poverty, the oppression of their country. And then they want to come here and they want to make our country their country.
Right.
This is ridiculous. I see this with these elected officials now who come here from these Middle Eastern countries. They travel over here and they go, since our country is terrible, we want to implement the same Sharia law sort of things.
But they'll do it right. If it's done right.
So
it's done
why,
correctly.
ma'am, why do you love America?
Several reasons. Number one, the people of America make America great. And I still believe in the American spirit and people who are patriots and people who see what this country has done for other nations. I mean, America has helped so many countries around the world, including our nation of Bulgaria. If it wasn't for President Reagan, we would still be under communism probably, if no other president decided to withstand and go against the dictatorship there. Not only that, but when I showed up here, the moment I landed at the JFK airport, I said to myself, I want to implement the best of the American culture into my life and the best of the Bulgarian culture into what I know in my life for here. Like I am learning, and I've learned a lot of discipline. I mean, I'm an extremely disciplined person from communist days. So how about I just bring it together? And instead of looking at communism as something that was there to destroy my life, I looked at it as something like an invisible mentor that empowered me now as a stepping stone to be able to have a nonprofit, to help other kids. So a lot of people come with the mentality of, I'm escaping something and I'm running into something. I wasn't escaping anything. I was coming to America because I wanted to also integrate what was best of America into my culture and vice versa, but to be able to help and be a spokesperson for the kids in Bulgaria, I needed to be here in order to give them finances and provide education and the relationships that we established. I also came with $100. I am to this day telling people you cannot show up in any other nation with just $100 and be able to succeed all these years later. You will be taxed so much that you won't be able to even start a business off the ground, even if you have a big vision. In America, literally, you can create your 3-point goal, and somebody is going to say, "I believe in that dream. Let me help
There we
you."
go.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I've got a question for
Okay,
you.
question.
The things that you brought out of communistic Bulgaria, did you iron your clothes before you came to the show today?
No.
Oh, my gosh.
I buy
That's a
clothes that don't have to be ironed.
That's a black dot. Black dot there. You want a black
I couldn't
dot.
do it. I couldn't do it.
Okay, now, Z, there are 10 planks
10 planks.
of socialism. There's 10 planks.
Oh, wow.
And I want to
didn't
go over
know
these
that.
10 planks because
Okay.
I think it's important that people know if you see these things coming down. Paul, if you see these things, you need to go, uh-oh.
Uh-oh. There's 2
Here it
planks.
comes.
Because in just a
I think I
moment,
have
we're
heard
going to
about
call
it,
we're
by
going
the way.
to call a doctor on the line in just a minute here. And this doctor fought to protect our freedoms. We're going to call him in just a second
Okay.
on the phone. It's going to be great. But I want to go over these planks here. Okay.
And plank is defined as, for our listening audience,
Like a point.
like a point.
A key principle.
Key principle.
Principle number 1 is the abolition of private property and land and the application of all rents of the land to public purpose. So in New York right now, they're saying, New York, anybody, if you don't want to pay rent, it's okay. In New York,
okay.
this is what Cuomo's, he's into it right now. Blasio's saying, don't pay rent.
Don't
so
pay
what
it.
does that do to the landlord?
He's
They
not
don't
getting
care.
his rent payments.
Interesting. Point number 2 says a heavy progressive or graduated income tax. So basically, the more you make, the more they take. It sounds like the more you make, don't they take more?
Yes, they do.
Yep.
And that keeps happening more. Paul, what's the maximum amount of income you can pay if you live in Oklahoma? Maximum amount of income tax you can pay if you live in Oklahoma right now between federal and state, the max roughly.
It was about 38%.
And then you buy a house, do you have to keep paying that property
You gotta pay
tax?
the real estate
What
taxes.
percentage tax is it? If you say you buy a house for $1 million, what percent of a tax is the real estate tax in
It's
Oklahoma?
2-3%, 4%. It depends on what city you live in.
You get to keep paying
Right.
that every year as a good
Every year.
reminder
And
you're
it-
alive.
And they get to decide how much your property's
Toll
worth. So they
roads,
just drive it up.
tax,
Toll roads,
gas tax,
sales tax,
yeah,
payroll
tax,
taxes.
payroll tax,
Fees to start things, you have
franchise
to,
tax. On average, Paul, I've heard it said that the average American pays a little bit more than half of all
Oh,
money
yeah.
in taxes. Is that correct, sir?
Oh, it's absolutely
And you're
correct.
a CPA.
That's right.
That's just it. Okay. Point number 3, the abolition of all rights of inheritance. Paul, tell us about this thing called the death tax.
Yeah, so the inheritance tax is a redistribution of wealth to so you don't pass it on to your kids. What you've created doesn't get to get
So
passed
you
on to your
work hard,
kids.
you leave it for your kids, and then what happens?
And then they take half of it.
Oh, that's
the
interesting.
government takes
Okay.
half
So
of it.
point number 4.
That's why I heard sidebar.
Sidebar.
There's a lot of Chinese individuals that are coming over to the United States and buying property here with the money that they have, and then going back to China because they can pass that along.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, point number 4 here, the confiscation of property of all immigrants and rebels. Point number 5, the decentralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with state capital and exclusive monopoly. You think about this, the Federal Reserve right now. It's like all roads lead to the Federal Reserve. It's like you can't be in business right now. Mr. Business owner, you got to shut it down.
Shut it down.
You got to shut down your auction, shut down your haircut chain, and we'll just print money.
Right.
You know, because we're just going to.
Because we can.
We just print it. I mean, it's like they got a new.
You need more money? Just print
See,
it.
they got a new Brother printer.
Yeah.
They were using Hewlett Packard.
Oh,
But they
horrible.
upgraded to the new Brother laser.
Oh, that's nice.
And you just hit the button, and you got to hit the enter button, and they just can print money.
Yeah.
Paul, does that devalue currency?
That
Do that?
devalues. Z has one of those in his office. I've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Point number 6, the centralization of the means of communication and transportation into the hands of the state, basically pushing away from private vehicles and moving into, like, we all need to take the bus, we all need to take a train.
Control where
it's
you go,
better.
when you go, how you go.
Point 7, the extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state, the bridging into cultivation of wastelands and the improvement of soil generally in accordance with a common plan. Have you ever heard of farmers? I have farmers that are getting paid not to farm.
Absolutely.
It's called subsidies.
Is this?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Point number 8, the equal obligation of all to work, the establishment of industrial armies and of Point number 9, the combination of agriculture and manufacturing industries, gradual abolition of the distinction between town and country by a more equal distribution of the population over the country. See, have you heard about this where Joe Biden's a big fan of trying to destroy the suburbs? Have you seen this? He's wanting to move out
Right.
low-income housing into
Right.
the suburbs.
Right.
And plank number 10, free education for all children in government schools.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So it sounds like all 10 of those planks you're seeing them. Ceitci, I want to get your take. How close are we to seeing the socialist, Marxist, communist government take over if we don't speak up right now?
One step.
One step. What do you mean one step?
Is it a baby step or a big boy step?
I mean, obviously, the way I look at it, first of all, it takes about 25 years to change the mindset of a society into believing that these ideas are good and that they would work. And those 25 years have already passed and gone because most of the educational system in America has taught these kids to believe that socialism is amazing. So what you're going to have already is the next step from the changing of the mindset to them actually voting for that type of a mindset into the execution of power in the government.
Yeah, Clay, I've said many times the stuff that these politicians are saying today would have been a great and funny skit on Saturday Night Live 10 years ago. It just doesn't make sense, but they're in the public eye saying these things.
This is why I rail against school on, I think, every show. At some point, no matter, we could be talking about any topic at all, and at some point I'm going to say,
School.
college is terrible, and get your kids out of public schools. Now, we're going to call our next guest here. We're going to add him to the phone here. See, this is a doctor.
A doctor. A real
And
doctor?
he served in the military, and let me call him up here. His name is Cordy, Dr. Cordy Williams. Some of you have seen him online. He's the guy who brought the megaphone to the Capitol in Sacramento, California, and to protest against Governor Newsom's shutdowns and lockdowns. Is this Dr. Cordy?
This is Dr. Cordy.
Dr. Cordy, I apologize for the delay. Z and I were having a blasty blast talking about the slippery slope of socialism and communism, and then it occurred to me, we've got to call Dr. Cordy. So you're live right here on the show, sir. How are you doing?
I am living the dream, brother. Too blessed to be stressed.
Well, hey, for the folks out there that don't know your background, because I do, I want to make sure that I'm not skipping anything. Tell us about your military background.
Yeah, so 4 years in the United States Marine Corps, and I went in at 17, or tried to go in, and then I had to beg my mom, and we actually got into arguments for 2 weeks about, how it was the right thing to do and the best move for me and all this, and I just had to convince her, not because she's not a patriot, but she just didn't want her little boy going into the meanest, toughest branch of service there is out there, and I say that with all due respect to every other branch, because I'm a third generation veteran, but I'm the first Marine in my family. So.
And see, if we go to drcordywilliams.com,
I'm already on
Dr.
it. I'm on it.
C-O-R-D-I-E
The megaphone Marine. I love it.
Williams.com. Did you go into the Marines for the money? Did you go in there for the power?
Big paycheck.
What
Big
motivated you to
paycheck.
want to go into the
Yeah.
Marines? I mean this because
Well,
a lot of people don't understand what it's like to be a patriot so compelled as you were to join the military.
Well, yeah, as Z said, you get an exorbitant amount of money. Actually, when you cross the yellow footprints at Paris Island, they have a Ferrari waiting for you.
Oh,
Wow. You get to pick your color?
Yeah. I'm telling you, they treat you right. You get Gucci boots.
Oh, nice.
Gucci
That
boots.
the federal government gets for you.
Wow.
No, we all wish it was that way. It should be that way because they're giving it to those spoiled babies that wear shoulder pads and kneel for the flag and stuff on the weekends and catch footballs all day. But no, I mean, the life of a servant and patriot for me, it was about service. And it was about wanting to become a man. And I'd always respected Marines, and just never really thought I could do it. But I've always kind of been one of those guys that, if something kind of seems like it's going to be hard or like it might be difficult or there's very few people that can do it, then I'm usually the guy that wants to try that.
Z, can I tell you how I heard about our good friend, the Megaphone Marine here? Can I tell you about how I heard about this guy?
Megaphone Marine.
I'm not kidding. I cannot.
Should we talk to him with the megaphone?
These government shutdowns make me crazy.
They make me crazy.
They irritate me. And so what I did, Paul, is I turned on the protests live on YouTube.
Love it.
Cranked it up on the speakers so I could hear the Sacramento protests. And this is audio of what I heard, and it was so inspiring, so exciting. Let me hit play here on the audio here. Let me cue it up here. So all these people are gathered in front of the capital of California. And then there's a guy with a megaphone. Here we go.
Are you going to stand down in the face of tyranny, in the face of freedom?
And this guy's talking to the troops that are in front of the state capitol.
Are you going to sit there in your riot gear against peaceful protest?
And Andrew, can you cut to that camera real quick here?
Or are you going to say, you know what? It's time to stand up for my country. Because I took an oath of office and it said I will defend all enemies, foreign and domestic. Yeah. You know, you might lose your job, but I'd rather lose my job than lose my soul.
Amen.
I'd rather lose my job than lose my soul. Because what are you going to go tell your little boy or your little girl tonight? That you took a baton and you crushed somebody's skull that was a mom? Is that what a tough guy does?
And you sat there all day. How long were you out there with a megaphone, sir? How long were you out there?
We were, so the protest started, people, there were 3,000 people there by probably 11 a.m. and the protest didn't actually start till 12. But I was out there at 8 a.m., but I was probably up there with a megaphone for, I don't know, good 20 minutes at least.
It was awesome.
At different throughout the day.
Dude, I was cheered for you. I got out. I didn't have my megaphone nearby.
That's unfortunate.
But I was excited. I was just so fired up to see here's a patriot standing up against the tyranny. So I just want to ask you, sir, what do you think the average listener should do right now? And I want to get Ceitci's take on this too. What do you think, Dr. Cordy, the average person who's listening to this show, what should they do right now to fight against the tyranny? How can they help?
Well, I think, donate your time and donate your money. And I say that knowing that during these times, some people, some of our listeners, they don't have two nickels to rub together and times have been tough. But, I think we all have to press in and lean in to each other and helping each other. I think it's so important because, the needle between socialism and freedom right now is in that space that, in my opinion, 20, 30 years ago, the space between socialism and freedom was, 5,000 football fields. Now it's a couple of yards. And I think that's scary. And what I think our viewers need to understand is, you got to get involved. Look how easy it was to get everybody masking. Look how easy it's been for these counties and these mayors of these local municipalities, some of the elections that you and I and everyone else might have blown off. And, if you talk about California, there's 165 uncontested seats where Democrats have walked into political positions. There's 65 in the area of Fort Pierce that I was at this past weekend in Florida. And so get involved. If you don't think it's your time and you don't know how to do it, well, the first time you wiped your tail, you didn't know how to do that either. But somebody taught you how to do it and you figured it out and you stretched that muscle. So donate your time, get involved, come to some of our rallies that we're doing on the Freedom Tour USA. And then the other thing, contribute. Buy a Freedom Fighter t-shirt, 1776foreverfree.com, and then $2, $3, $4, $5, whatever you can do. If we can do $5 reoccurring payment monthly, that stuff helps. That's how we do this.
So,
stuff.
What website specifically do we need to go to donate $5 a month or wherever we go?
Yeah. So you can go to 1776foreverfree.com, and it literally has 2 contribute now buttons right there. And you just click on there, and there should be a little tag for you to be able to recurring payment if you choose
Andrew,
that option.
Here's the deal. I hate to cut off our guest, Z, but we don't have time to donate that money. We have to make time.
You got to click through.
So you got to click through. So Andrew, if you could go ahead and go right now, and let's just donate $10 a month recurring to this guy. Let's do it there. My wallet, I think, is in my brown bag. And let's see how long it takes. Because Paul, we don't have time to. Now I know this guy. I vetted this guy. He's a great American. As we are filibustering in an attempt to find my wallet, what does this money go towards? Because my wife and I, we're supporting quite a few political people right now, trying to help get this information out, trying to help people win off political positions. What does this money go towards? Are you buying Yoo-hoos? Are you auto shipping supplements? What are we doing with this money? If we donate to you, what are we doing?
Yep. There's actually a vacation we're planning to Maui.
With Gucci boots.
So you guys got me. No,
you got me.
This money. You guys are a lot of fun. No, this money actually goes towards security. Actually, right now, what we're doing is we're fundraising for security because we haven't had an incident with the BLM weirdos and the Antifa weirdos, and a lot of that is because we have guys strapped with AR-15s that have Secret Service and Marine Special Operations capable backgrounds. Guys that you and I want, Clay, when somebody's trying to rough us up in an alley, we've got those guys everywhere. So that people can bring their, kids out, and it is a family-friendly, all our rallies are family-friendly.
What's that website again, real quick? Here, all this Antifa talk has got me distracted. I got to make sure that I get you. What's your web address one more time?
1776foreverfree.
1776 Forever Free. Okay. And Andrew, you're...
Venmo.
Okay.
As well.
So what would you say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Andrew's in the process of putting the payment through. What would you say there? I'm sorry.
Yeah. If you don't want to do 1776foreverfree.com, which there's a contribute now button, and there should be a recurring link, a reoccurring link for that, unless my wonderful web buddy, who's amazing, by the way, unless he had a goof up, that should be on there. But you can also go to @foreverfreemerch, MERCH, on Venmo, and you can Venmo in. Now, I don't think there's a way on Venmo if you choose that way. I don't think there's a way to set up a reoccurring payment.
Yeah.
But that's another method as well if you chose that.
Now, Ceitci, you are fighting to share the truth about socialism and communism. If people want to learn more about you, where can they do that? Again, where can they do that? How can they support you there?
Absolutely. I have 2 websites. One is changingageneration.net.
Yeah.
That's about our nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
And also CEITCI.org. That's my personal website.
Yeah.
It has all of my different speaking engagements. I have a lot of different videos that I talk about socialism and communism, my faith, and then people also can reach out to me for bookings, and I've written 5 books on these subjects, so I have plenty of material and information out there.
Well, Z, as we wrap up today's show, I've got a tough question. I'm going to ask you the question first.
First of all, I'm buying some gear on 1776.
You're buying some gear right now?
Free,
okay, I'm going to ask you the question first. And no matter what you say, Paul, you get a chance to one-up Dr. Z. And no matter what you say, Cordy is probably going to one-up us all.
Oh.
And then
will he use a megaphone?
Does he have the...
He might use a megaphone.
Oh, he might.
So here's the question. Here's the question. Little background. We think about slavery. Forever, America was like an American thing that we wanted to get rid of. It was violating our Constitution. We believe that all people were created with certain unalienable rights, and we wanted to end freedom. But
you wanted to end slavery.
You wanted to end slavery, yes. You didn't want to end freedom.
I got you.
That way we were not practicing Marxism. We wanted to end slavery. So when we wanted to end the slavery, it comes down to 2 guys. They're related. One was a brother of the other guy. They're 2 brothers.
2 brothers.
And brother 1 says, we know we got to keep slavery going. And the other brother says, no, we don't.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do. There's a certain point where the bonds that used to keep us together have to separate. At a certain point, you just can't, and we've been as a culture taught, well, I could see your point, but at a certain point, I can't see your point.
Right.
So at a certain point, you have to stand up. At a certain point, Genesis 12, chapter 12, verse 1 from Genesis, it reads, "The Lord said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." You got to leave. At a certain point, we've all had to say bye-bye to that idiot in our life. Now, the problem is some of us have idiot family members.
No.
Idiot friends from college. People that are actually in favor of socialism right now. I mean, somebody's in favor of it.
Right.
So I just want to get your take on what we should do, Z. If I'm listening to this show, because I have so many listeners I've talked to on my cell phone, I talk to them and they go, dude, I love your show because I grew up and I live in poverty, and you're like the only thing positive that I get. And I'm recognizing I have to leave my family to go start my own thing.
Sure.
And you guys have all, to a certain extent, had to do that. So, Z, I'd start with you. At what point do you realize it's the breaking point? Like, at what point do you go, I got to get out of here? I can't fellowship with this mindset. I mean, at what point do you say, I got to get out of here, whether it be to start my own business, whether it be to stand up for my freedoms, to stand up for my love of the country? At what point do you go, I don't hate you, but I condemn your worldview?
Well, you should be doing that with pretty much anything. I mean, if you've got friends that are atheists and you're trying to live a wholesome Christian lifestyle, just having them always chirping in your ear. Now, obviously, we're told to go out and to minister to those kind of people. I mean, I know people, friends of mine, are more acquaintances than friends, that are drinking the socialism Kool-Aid, and you want to talk to them and express it. But there comes a time when you have to be very careful, because when you run with dogs, you catch fleas. So it's a fine line, Clay, of trying to put your DNA on them while not receiving their DNA. And I'll tell you what, the doctor was right. We've got to be peaceful now, but there may come a point, just like even when trying to end slavery, that it didn't go so well for the country. What I'm saying is this: is that peaceful protesting, peaceful getting together and getting the word out, getting people activated. You know, the silent majority that you hear so much about. I wish that they weren't silent. Start talking. Start spreading your money around. You know, wherever your money goes, that's where your
Have you ever flipped a table in your office? Have you ever been so mad at the back in the days when you're a young man? Building your
I don't
business?
know that
Have
I
you
ever
been so mad that you flipped over tables?
I don't know that I flipped the table, but I thought about flipping tables back in the day.
Well, you know, Matthew chapter 21, verses 12 through 13, a lot of people think Jesus was weak. A lot of people talk about Jesus as being like a, bruh, follow me, bro. But Jesus, this is from Matthew chapter 21, verses 12 through 13, says, Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. It is written, he said to them, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers. Paul Hood, I want to get your take. At what point do you stand up and say, socialism, not good? I'm done listening. At what point do you have that breaking point?
Well, the challenge is, like Z said, and I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase, Clay, pigs don't know pigs stink. And the challenge is the more we put in, the more we hang out with people, and we have this natural desire to help people. But there's some people that just, I think for me, it's two chances. If you say something idiotic, if you say something stupid, I'm going to come and I'm going to nicely say, well, here's where you're wrong. Tell me, and don't talk about how you feel. Tell me where let's have a discussion. I'll give them a second chance when they say something stupid or whatever that, and it's really from a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of knowledge and a desire to have everything and do nothing. The second time you do it, I'm going to say you're out because you don't deserve to spend time with me. You don't deserve to have me share with you because you're not willing to open your mind and see the truth. Now, my buddy Steve Currington's on step number 3, but he's different. I gave him a third chance.
I just see a lot of parents. I see a lot of parents, and I'm not at all talking about you, Paul, or Z. I just see a lot of people that have kids that are 18, 19, 22, 23, living at home, being socialists, eating mom and dad's food, advocating socialism.
They are.
And at a certain point,
they've done nothing.
We move beyond helping somebody, and we move into a place where we're actually encouraging this behavior. So
Absolutely.
I just encourage everybody today, take an assessment, say, am I teaching my kids the truth? Am I at least standing up for the principles that make sense? Cordy, I want to get your take on this, sir. You're a doctor. You served in the Marines. At what point do you speak out and say, hey, it's enough of this. We have to speak the truth?
Well, I think the key is asking questions, and I say that a lot. And I've always been taught that the person with the most influence and the person that's going to carry the weight in the room is the guy asking questions. And so I think a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it too, we try the convincing nature of trying to just talk somebody into a certain ideology, thought process, or new idea, and asking questions. Like one of the things I've been doing at the rallies that we've been doing, that I've been encouraging the audience to take part in, is doing their freedom love story. And really what that is just like, when's the first time that they became patriotic, and asking that person that's a Sleepy Joe fan in their family, or
how could they be a Sleepy Joe fan?
That person that they know, where do you expect our country? Where do you see our country in 10 years? What do you think about the flag? How do you feel about freedom? What is that to you? And asking those questions, because they're really going to hang themselves. And sometimes I think that's what needs to happen for people to really realize,
true.
like, man, I'm really being kind of like brainwashed here.
Z, I made a list of all the things that Joe Biden's in favor of. I don't know how you get behind him, but late-term abortion, just abortion in general, late-term abortion, I don't get that.
Yeah.
Raising everybody's taxes. He's talked about the Green New Deal, where it just would
Oh,
raise taxes so much.
The fun thing is he flip flops on everything. So you have to preface where he stands on things as the king of the flip flop.
I find it very hard to find a single thing that he's in favor of that makes any sense at all.
Any sense at all.
Unbelievable. Yes, sir.
I have a good friend of mine who is
since he's going to one up you no matter what you say in just a minute. So get ready.
Here's the deal. So I've said I want to find an intelligent Democrat who can talk issues. Tell me why you feel these things. And I listed out for a buddy of mine, low taxes, blah, 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 the different things, being a conservative. And I said, do you disagree? And he went through and disagreed with everything, including low taxes. He said, I want higher taxes.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I said, brother, I can help you out.
What?
I do your tax return.
Oh.
You're going to pay higher taxes next year. And he said, no, I wasn't meaning me.
No.
And that's the whole deal, is they want somebody else to pay higher taxes.
Well, sure. So I can get my freebies. My goodness.
Unbelievable.
See, if somebody else had contributed to Dr. Cordy enough, these T-shirts I'm getting ready to purchase right now, I could get for free.
That's right.
Hey, did we set up my auto giving? Did we do that, Andrew? And what's that website one more time, Cordy? I want to make sure for all the listeners out there. What's your website one more time?
Oh, good, Clay. 1776foreverfree.com.
Okay, great. So we're auto shipping some money your way. Now, folks, I want to tell you this. When Cordy goes out there and speaks and shows up at these places and shares the truth, he's not doing it for the money. He's actually a doctor. And if it's okay, I mean, I guess, see, this is kind of these where you ask a question, but it's not really a question. But I guess, Cordy, if it's okay, can I share that you've spent a ton of money on helping share the word out there and have brought in a lot less money than you've spent?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's what you're doing. I mean, he's out there he's going all in. I mean, you see this. I mean, my wife and I have gotten behind certain patriots and have supported getting them in the news and the media and the airwaves. And it costs money to fly people. See, this just in. It costs money to fly people where the action is.
It does. It
This
absolutely does.
Okay, now, Ceitci, you have the final opportunity. You have the final take here. You can share whatever you want with the listeners out there. I appreciate you sharing your story, growing up under communist rule, moving to America, sharing about the missionaries that came and reached you, sharing about the slippery slope of socialism. You've covered so much ground, but what's your final take? What would you like to share with our listeners?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah.
And for anybody listening, I just want you to, if you're not certain what socialism and communism really is, please go and research for yourself instead of just tuning into a media. And listen to people like me who actually have lived under it, not from a textbook and not from a media source, but from someone who actually has true stories to share. Because nobody, when I start sharing my stories, can compete with the textbook with me. It's one thing about reading it and having kids brainwashed in school to go against the Constitution and desire socialism. It's another thing when a real person begins to share the tragic stories of our lives under that kind of a dictatorship. And I can go on and on about the free medical system in a country that has killed almost all of my relatives, that continues to do illegal activities with abortion and sales of children inside of the hospitals. So when we look at what is happening right now in the United States, we're very close to actually turning a blind eye because we're being deceived. And so many people, literally, I feel like they're so deceived in understanding that this is a globalist agenda of taking over every single country and removing the constitutional rights of people and turning it into a socialist state, because the socialist state is the system that is anti-Christ. And if anybody just tunes in into the show right now, the main thing that they need to take away from it is when you have socialist system, you will have no freedom of religion. You will immediately have to basically you will be asked, are you going to believe in Jesus? And if yes, then these are the consequences. So most Christians don't have that preparation. They have been going to church just to look cute. They're not going to church because they're fighting for rights. And that's another thing about Christians right now. They need to start getting involved. People of faith, as far as Christian faith, need to start getting involved in all levels of society, not just going to church.
I want to share some good news. Courtney, is it okay if I end today's show with some good news?
Absolutely, baby. I would love that.
President Trump just tweeted out a couple hours ago. I'm reading this to you. He says, this is President Donald Trump. He says, I will be leaving the great Walter Reed Medical Center today at 6:30 p.m. feeling really good. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. We have developed under the Trump administration some really good drugs and knowledge. I feel better than I did 20 years ago. Now, I can say this. I want three big ideas. Dr. Richard Bartlett, Z, you've met him. You've shaken his hand. He's a former top medical advisor.
Came to my house.
He's been to your house.
Great guy.
Former top medical advisor for Governor Perry of Texas for 7 consecutive years. Yep. This guy's treated 1,200 people.
Plus.
And nobody's died. President Trump is fine now. He's out. And President Trump, when he went into the hospital, I just want the listeners to know this, he had 86.1 million people following him on Twitter when he went in the hospital. He's up to 87 million. So 900,000 more people are following him. And if you look at all the polls right now, the ones that are intellectually honest, it's unbelievable. When President Trump won in 2016, he won with 8% of the black vote. And that number Rasmussen is showing now is way up. And you show the Hispanic vote way up because people are realizing that President Trump improved the standard of living for white people, black people, Hispanic people.
For everybody.
And it's just an unbelievable. I just feel like there's a great momentum that's going to happen here. But all of our listeners, we've got to take action today. You got to pick your cause. You're going to support Cordy? Are you going to support Ceitci? You're going to support them both? We got to take action. We've got to do it.
We've got to do it. I mean, the future is in our hands, and we can't be laissez-faire about it because we've been laissez-faire for the last 25 years, and they have taken over big chunks. of our children's minds.
Yep.
And the other thing that I would say is that Cuba's only 80 miles away. They could zip down there for a month, maybe a summer love fest month down there in Cuba, and check that out. Get in line maybe to get a chicken or something.
Yeah. If I could just add one more thing, when I was thinking about all that is happening in America, I came out with this quote that fear tells you what to think and truth gives you the freedom to think. When we have news media and any channel out there that is constantly talking about fear, it paralyzes people from being free to decide.
True.
And when you are given freedom, and even the freedom that like Jesus offers, you have the choice and the ability to think for yourself and to choose. And so I am just encouraging people, choose freedom, choose God, and choose to be the one that is accountable and leads this next generation to greater abilities of achieving their dreams.
Z, I'm fired up.
I wrote that down.
Let's end this show with a boom.
Let's go start a parade.
3, 2, 1,
boom.